Hello, and welcome to the Believers Lounge podcast. Thank you for joining us today. As per usual, you've heard me say this many times before, but I'll say it again. My name's Michael. Glad to be with you today. And today I'm also joined, as per usual, by my co-host, John. Where's John? We're trying to record a video here. Like, what are you doing?
I am here. I had to get all festive. And
oh, that's why it took you long.
I got my shoes.
Whoa, look at those.
Got my hat. I got my hat. I'm ready. I'm festive.
I didn't get the memo, apparently. So
I emailed it to you 30 seconds ago.
That would explain why I didn't get it. Well,
we are on video now.
I know. This is a first for us, isn't it?
It's a test run, so don't expect video all the time, but our next two episodes, this one and one more, are going to be video.
That's right, yes. Yeah, our next two episodes for December here are going to be on video, so we're going to see how this goes, and you know what? If it works, if people like it, maybe we'll go back to it.
Yeah, and special thanks to Gregory Drive Church for letting us use the sanctuary.
Yes, for sure.
Their equipment. So yeah, if we don't break anything, they might let us do it again.
Yeah, we'll have to be really careful with Yes, no, it's they've been really good to us.
They have, yeah.
So we're really thankful for that, and so yeah, like John said, maybe in the future, maybe we can do that. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. It's almost Christmas time.
It's almost Christmas. I can't wait.
It's December 1st today. First day of December. So you'll be hearing this a little bit later in December, but for us, it just turned December. Christmas music has still been going for a while now. The Christmas trees, the decorations have all been up. Not me personally, mind you, but I mean out in the city and such, right? So.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So, without further ado, let's get into the conversation today.
All right, let's do it.
Perfect. So I thought I'd start off this conversation with getting the foundation of Christmas. And I'm going to read from Matthew 1, starting at verse 18. Now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. And her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins.
For sure. That's a good reminder, too, based, and not just for Christmas time in general, but understanding that, Mary, Joseph, and all the key figures involved in the Christmas story were different kinds of people. They had their own issues, their own things to work with. But see, God used them in order for His plan, essentially, right? Like in order for to kind of paint the story, or if you can call it that, even of what Jesus coming would signify, right, as a whole. And so, great passage. what are some takeaways from that for you?
Yeah. Well, if you were paying attention in church today, as I was.
I mean, yes, I was definitely paying
yes.
attention to church.
As I was sitting listening to the sermon, we were discussing. Well, you were there.
Yes, yes.
We were discussing the song "O Little Town of Bethlehem."
That's right. Yes.
And going through it almost lyric by lyric, and I know for myself and speaking for you as well, we just love music.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So getting a sermon series focusing on Christmas carols is fantastic for us. But yeah, in O Little Town of Bethlehem, the song really says that God can use anyone, but he uses the lowly and the meek so much more often, even through the whole history of the Bible. Talk about Moses. You know, Moses, yes, he was born a Hebrew, raised in Pharaoh's palace, but then spent 40 years in the desert learning how to be meek, learning how to be that shepherd, which society pretty much despises.
Yep.
Because, you know, they're the guys who are outside with the sheep and they smell just as bad as the sheep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And then God lifted him up to be a great leader out of that meekness, out of that lowly societal status.
Yep.
So bring that into the Christmas story. Joseph was a carpenter. He was, you know, blue collar guy. Mary wasn't much.
No.
Before then, yet those two were chosen by God to bear Jesus and to raise Jesus. So out of that meekness came Christ. And who was the first one to be told of the announcement that Jesus was going to be born in Bethlehem? The shepherds.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
So you get the lowly couple and the announcement to lowly shepherds, and they're glorified by God to become very key figures in what we now call the Christmas story, which I like to refer to as the greatest story ever told.
For sure. It's what I find really fascinating about the Christmas story, and I alluded to this a little bit just before, is the fact that God essentially shows us many different examples of living the Christian life. And I mean that's what we are, right? That's our motto here at the podcast, right? Is, you know, casual conversations about living the Christian life. And what better example in how to live and the testimonies that God can use anyone, and like you said, uses the meek, uses the humble, right? What better testament to that than, you know, the Christmas story? And one thing I want to say real quick about that is God uses, again, can use anybody, will use anyone that comes to him. But if we exhibit, you know, the characteristics of humility, essentially the fruit of the Spirit, right? Love and joy and peace and patience. Again, we can try having those things on our own. Doesn't work, let me tell you. But, you know, when we're willing to be used by God, then, you know, God, you know, essentially takes us up on that offer, and he uses us. And so no matter our and we were told this, we heard this morning as well too at church, but no matter what our circumstances are, no matter who we are, that God can use us, and we find that example again through the Christmas story. And so it's kind of reassuring, as much as we hear the story, right? We hear the story every Christmas. For those raised in the church, they could probably recite half of it. You don't even have to be a quizzer or anything like that, right? You probably already know. But I believe it's in Timothy where, or it might not be Timothy. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but there's somewhere in the Bible where it says that the Bible is, essentially alive, right? It is breathed by the Holy Spirit. It corrects. It convicts. It's not just a book. And so because of that, every year, even though we hear the story, that doesn't mean that we can't learn something new, or we can't be convicted, or we can't be changed. I know, just personally, me, talking about me, as much as I've heard the story and know the story, every Christmas, it almost seems like one fact about the Christmas story, or a lyric from a hymn, like one of the Christmas hymns that, of course, connects with Scripture and such. It's just sometimes one little sentence or something, or something. Very eloquent, I know, right? But you know what I mean. Like, it's just one little thing that makes me think, and whether that makes me realize of something I need to ask for forgiveness for, or it might bring joy, or especially peace, I find. And a lot of times it's like peace from kind of the stress of everyday life, you know what I mean? And so, again, not to get too carried away into that, but yeah, that's just me personally, like how I kind of view Christmas, and in relation to what we're talking about here. So, yeah. Just a little snippet there. So, what about yourself?
Well, I want to get into the difference between Christmas to us and Christmas to the rest of the world, to the rest of society, to the rest of culture, Western culture.
Okay, yeah. No, that's not a problem. I just like to skip in the notes, right?
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, no, let's talk about that, sure.
Yeah, so how we usually hear Christmas portrayed in media, movies, television, Hallmark movies.
Yeah, oh gosh.
That it's a time for, I always say, for peace on earth, for you to get together with your family and, just reflect on the year. And that's pretty much it. You get together for Thanksgiving dinner 2.0.
Pretty much, if you live in the States, right?
And then, of course, there's the whole getting presents and Santa and the stories that came out of that.
That's right. Yep.
And most of the time, culture just misses it completely. You get those hints of, when we were talking with Alec Tim, and how stories, whether they're not like Christian-based stories, if they have those fundamental truths in them, you can still get something out of them. So you get that with some of the Christmas stories. There's the battle of good versus evil, and magic, and like there's nothing wrong with sparking the imagination of let's say of kids with Frosty the Snowman as a snowman that can come alive with this magic hat, and he goes around and has adventures with the school children. But then there's the later half of the story where Frosty melts. Yeah. And Santa comes in and says, "Oh, he's not really dead because he was made with Christmas snow." And he opens the door, the wind blows, and Frosty comes alive again. You can take the similarities with Christ as his death and resurrection. So not every story may not be perfectly the Christmas story, but you can find those similarities in it. And that's really what I took away from our conversation with Tim, is to look in stories for those fundamental truths.
For sure. I would really encourage you, if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to our episode with Alec, Christianity and Media, I would really recommend you take a listen to that. Into your point there, for sure. Christmas seems to be one of the main really areas where we see the lessons of humility and giving and spending time with those you love, or even lessons in humility. Or a lot of Christmas movies have start out with someone who's maybe either selfish or prideful or stuck up, and then by the end of the movie they're changed somehow, right? And so stories, you know what I mean? No, go for it. What's up?
Immediately in my mind, when you said that, I'm immediately thinking of two movies.
Charlie Brown Christmas.
Okay, three movies.
Oh.
3 movies. Yeah, Charlie Brown Christmas.
Okay.
I think of also The Grinch.
Yes, that was
which was one of my personal favorites.
Yes, that was one of I was thinking there too. Yeah.
Also, Polar Express.
Did not think of that one.
Great Tom Hanks movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Can you just elaborate for the Polar Express? Because that was the one I wasn't thinking of that you mentioned there in regards to that. What about, and yeah, I already know the answer, but for our for our viewers, what about that strikes you?
So in the Polar Express, spoiler alerts.
It's been around long enough, I think, right?
It has. If you haven't seen it, pause this, go watch it,
come back,
and then come back. So you've been warned. The boy is really questioning his Christmas belief, his Christmas faith.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he wants to believe, but he just can't. The Polar Express shows up, and he gets an opportunity to go to the North Pole, to meet Santa. All throughout the journey to the North Pole, he still struggles with his Christmas faith, his belief in Santa.
Yep.
And it's not until he meets Santa and is given the gift of the Christmas bell that he really believes. Like, he couldn't even see Santa until he decided to believe. And then he saw Santa, and he received the gift.
That's right, yeah.
How relevant is that to the Christian life, where faith it's not seeing? Like, we can't see Christ, like not physically. And it's a belief that we have to come to in our hearts, and then we really see Jesus. And then we're given the gift of salvation.
It's quite the example, isn't it? You know what I mean? There's definitely a lot of takeaways from that. Yeah, and like we were talking about, there's so many different stories and movies, and they kind of all center around that. And I mean, talking about in the greater context between, I guess, Christmas and our culture, while those are present, there's the flip side where year after year the commercialism gets pushed more and more. They've taken the ideas of Santa and gift giving and essentially have just made it all about the pomp and circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And again, that's not what Christmas is about. But unfortunately, in our culture, that's quite relevant as to what's happening today.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say to someone who's like, I want to, again, maybe not the, because I was just thinking about Charlie Brown there, will someone tell me what Christmas is all about, right? And then Linus does his explanation there, right, about Christmas and such. But yeah, what do we tell people? How do we encourage others? Because my goodness, there's so many different ways we can look at that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things going on, and not just the if I can say this, the glitter of commercialism.
Yeah.
If you know. Right? So there's so many things happening in today, and it's real easy to get caught up in all of that, or feel, go to the Christmas events, even sing the Christmas songs, watch Christmas movies, essentially get yourself immersed in the season.
Yep.
And then still feel empty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because if you're missing Christ, you're missing everything.
Everything. Right. Not just one thing, not just a few things. You're missing everything about it, right? And I really, and going on what you were saying earlier too, I really think that when we receive that gift, right, when we ask for forgiveness, and we start to know Jesus more and more as we grow and as we accept the gift of salvation, we start to see the world through a clearer lens. And by clearer, I mean you see the world for as it is, and how, can I be frank, how messed up it is,
Mm-hmm.
how terrible in some ways it is. But the good thing is,
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
The
Yeah.
flip side to that is you also see how beautiful the world is.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah,
Yes,
no, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, we're on the same page. You're right. You're exactly right. Yeah. And we see the gift of God's gift of salvation, and then which starts with Jesus being born, is the whole reason why we can be free of our sin, our guilt, and our shame, and we can have a relationship with God, and what we say and what we do can have purpose. It's not just all fake. It's not, I did everything that's required of me, like I just said for the Christmas season, right? I've done everything and I feel empty.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people who follow religion are like. They do everything that's required, but their spirit, their soul is not impacted.
They're missing that personal relation with Christ that it's all about. I mean, why did Jesus come into the world, but only to get to know us, and us to get to know him?
Exactly. It's so countercultural, but even more than that, it's so counter-religion.
Yeah.
Religion, I will try not to go off on a rabbit trail, but we know this, right? But yeah, quite simply, as you're aware of already, religion is, it's just rules and regulations, and what you do towards, whoever. But, Jesus, again, shows us the example of him coming as a baby. You got to think, Jesus left his majesty. Like, he's the one who spoke the world into existence, and he left it to become a baby.
Yeah,
a
to become
baby.
a baby.
Not just come
The
down.
most helpless of all creatures, we could say.
Yeah.
Totally dependent on its parents.
That's right.
So yes, for God to humble himself to that extent just for us. Because, I mean, it was the only way to save us from our sin was to become fully human and die the sinless death, take on all of our sin so that we don't have to, so that we can have the gift of salvation. Mm-hmm. That was the entire reason, but it came at such a high cost for Christ.
Yes, it's again, Christmas is essentially the beginning of that story, right? Mm-hmm. It's, a lot of people say, the ministry of Jesus started at Christmas, ended at Easter, right? Not in the span of 4 months or anything like that.
No copyright at all, but Easter really was the end of the beginning.
Yes. Yeah, and there's, again, it's just really cool that no matter what season we're in, I know it's December, I know it's Christmas, everyone wants to hear the Christmassy things.
Yeah.
But if we can kind of back up from Christmas just for a second, I know, bear with me, it's okay, just for a second, whether it's Christmas, whether it's Easter, whether it's August 17th, it's dark, things are maybe not going well in our lives, sitting at home, unsure of the future. You know what I mean? And I just say that specific example just to give clarity to no matter what time of year it is, where we're at, we can always be encouraged and we can learn from, the life of Jesus. And so Christmas, though, again, is a time to really kind of focus in on, what Jesus did for us, right? Especially in the Easter story. And for myself, that's what I really focus on, or I try to, at least at Christmas, is just remembering what he set aside to do, but also remembering all the different parts of the Christmas story and knowing that, hey, God used, these people, and I take that as encouragement, right? So, yeah, no, it's really cool.
So was there any other topic or points we want to mention in this episode?
Well, I think, yeah, there was one or two others. We can kind of switch gears and we can talk more about, actually, funny enough, when you do a live show, you're always so much more conscious of what you're doing and what you're saying. And so I just had a moment of forgetting what I was going to say. Although what's really cool is I'm at the point now where I'm comfortable not having anything to say.
Well, that's a first.
It is a first. And again, if we're all about them casual conversations,
we are all about those casual conversations.
Let's be frank, or if you want, you can just be John and I'll just be Michael.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I appreciate the candidacy. Is that a word? Being candid?
Candor?
Candor, yes.
Is that a word?
Is that a word?
I don't know. Someone who studied English, drop a comment and maybe a course to an English class.
We'll get our producers on that.
Oh yes. Yes. We'll have to get producers.
Hey, they don't know that. Anywho, but no. Serious talk for a second. When I think of, I guess, when I think of the commercial side to Christmas, and more specifically, what our culture takes away from Christmas, I wonder, what can we do? You know what I mean? I guess that's how I think too. I always think of the practical application behind things. How do we make an impact, or how do we share the good news of specifically Jesus' birth to a world that's already quite familiar with, the Christmas holiday? And if they do know anything about Jesus, which most people do, let's be honest, Christmas is one of the reasons why. How do we share the good news that Christmas brings with others? What's a practical way we do that? You know what I mean?
Well, I think one way, it's a very simple way. I know in the past several years, there was kind of a societal issue with it.
Saying Merry Christmas?
Saying Merry Christmas.
Yes.
That was it.
Yes.
A lot of people would be like, Happy Holidays. We want to include everyone. We are in very liberal Canada. We want to include everyone.
We want to include everyone, yes.
Say Happy Holidays. It's politically correct.
Yep, exactly.
There was a big push a few years ago where a lot of people were fed up with the Happy Holidays, and they said Merry Christmas. So at the grocery store, say Merry Christmas. To the person who's running the Salvation Army kettle, say Merry Christmas. Another way is getting involved in different Christmas activities. By activities, I mean like the kettles. Volunteer for the kettles, because you're seeing so many people. You can do the thank you for your donation.
Yeah.
Some people don't even say anything when people come because it's busy. There's a lot of people that come by. But you can get those one or two people who you can have an opportunity to talk with and share the Christmas story with them. You can, you just talk about Jesus. Another way is, I was going to mention this in our next episode when we talk about our personal traditions for Christmas, but going caroling. I grew up going caroling in our church, and we did leave it mostly to the elderly members of the church or some of the shut-ins who can't always make it to church. The youth would split into groups and go caroling to about 5, 6, 7 different people. But go caroling even out in the public, singing, not jingle bells,
of course not, no.
Singing like those songs, Away in a Manger,
Yep.
O Come All Ye Faithful, songs like that really tell the true story, the true message of Christmas. So that's ways we can speak about the true meaning of Christmas to the general public.
For sure. No, and I very much agree with doing that, and I think that's a really good opportunity if you have the time. Or you know what? A lot of the times, I guess we do say if you have the time. As Christians, we need to make time because there's things that are important at the end of the day, and then there's things that we think are important a lot of the times as well too, or we want to do something for our own gratification, or for a multitude of reasons, right? And so it's important for us to really be again in the mindset of how can I make an impact, right?
Yeah.
And I really liked your example of singing in the choir. Don't think we have enough time today to talk about modern choruses in Christmas songs.
Right, yeah.
Very specific example there, but Christmas music might have to be another conversation. But anyway.
Yeah. Or another one I just thought of, if you belong to a church, you most likely have a Christmas Eve service.
That's right, yeah.
Go through your neighborhood, invite your neighbors to the Christmas Eve service. that is probably one of the safest ways to get some people in church, because you do get your, I can't remember the term we call them. There are people who show up to church for like just Easter, Christmas, and that's their church for the year.
Oh, yes. Seasonal Christians. Yes.
Seasonal Christians. It's a great way to get someone into church to hear the message, because it's a non-threatening type of service. It's not, oh, I'm going there and I'm going to hear a sermon about everything I'm doing wrong, and it's just the good news of the gospel that you're hearing. And I think that's a great way to get someone into church.
For sure. Oh, definitely. Yeah, and you definitely see a lot of people during Christmas and Easter, like you mentioned. It's a good opportunity to invite people for exactly that, and the hope is that that with them coming out, that something during the service kind of catches their attention, right? And so yeah, Christmas is it's a time of year that is very well known, very commercialized, but also full of biblical examples out of the Bible, right, on how to live the Christian life, and again, just to be reminded of who God is and why He came, what the reason for coming, and so with saying that.
So yeah, with all the noise and the glitter of commercialism, as we like to
favorite
say,
line.
we love our Grinch quotes.
Yes, we do.
In spite of all that, like we've mentioned, the truth will come out no matter what.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, don't get discouraged by trying to avoid all the glitz and glamour of the season. The true story, it makes itself known.
It really does. And like always, we want to be willing to be used by God, right? God's word is going to get out there no matter what, but we want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? And so this Christmas season, we hope no matter where you've come from, what your background is, that something about the Christmas story, something about Jesus impacts you this year. And, whether it's by inviting someone to a Christmas Eve service or just encouraging others in whatever way you can, we want to really take the time to look back all those years ago to that stable out in Bethlehem where we got blessed by God because He came to earth and became, He was still fully God, but He was fully man. And the world has been changed ever since.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we just hope that something about the Christmas season really impacts you, because I know for us, even though we've heard the story many, many times, as long as we're, we're willing to listen, there's something new to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We thank you for listening. Again, this was our first time doing a video podcast.
First time doing video.
So it's a little different. There might be little things here and there that will work out right. It's not going to be all perfect, but we don't advertise ourselves as a perfect podcast.
Yep. And I'm going to be editing this, so it's not going to be perfect. Right? I will tell you that now.
Yeah, no, that's okay. You do a good job editing. We appreciate your service.
Yeah.
I didn't know what else to say. We do. We really do. And so, again, we just want to thank you all for listening. Tune in for our next episode, which will be only a couple days before Christmas itself.
Yeah.
And like John mentioned, we're going to be talking more about our personal experiences during Christmas. And so we hope you'll join us then. But in the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening.
And Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas.